Astarion was the last character I got out of the 6. Which is
Really?
a lot of time. Yeah, and when you realize where he is on the map, when I got to that, I was like, oh, I see why most people would have gotten to him first. So, Alex, I think I mentioned that I had gotten around to playing some Baldur's Gate 3.
You vaguely mentioned it after you'd played it for like a year.
Yes, yes. I had played it very recently, in fact. I think in December. In December, I actually picked it up and started playing it. And very good. Very good. Just give my initial thoughts out. You'll probably see it pretty high up on the list when I do my every game from 2023. But I ran into one little issue, and it was about 10 hours in. Can you guess what that issue might be?
It was the Underdark.
No, the Underdark is fine. The Underdark is fine. It was another issue in terms of structure. And about 10 hours in, can you venture a guess as to what that problem was that I was annoyed by?
Death.
Okay. Yes, I'm annoyed by death. No, the reason I say 10 hours in is the point where I had collected more than the 3 characters that would be with me in the game. And I started having to trade them out at the camp to come with me on adventures. And this leads to the one mod that I actually needed for Baldur's Gate 3. Which is, and I, no regrets again. I literally got on Nexus Mods and started an account because I just wanted to fix this one thing. This was the one thing that I hope somebody had done something to fix.
And now, you can just download mods for everything. I'm surprised you haven't got Nexus before, considering Skyrim is on there with like 50,000 mods.
Oh, yeah. Well, then I just have choice paralysis. But
no, you just go most popular.
Oh, okay. I like least popular. We should just download the least popular mods and see what happens.
Great, if you just want to replace everything with dicks, I guess.
Or Thomas the Tank Engine, which is pretty much the same thing.
No, that is popular.
Yeah, exactly. Thomas the Dick Engine. Anyway, the point of the matter is, there's the episode title. Anyway, the point is...
No, because then we won't get any views, and it will be limited.
But, it's still worth it. Anyway, the point of the matter is, there was a mod that I actually did want to get for Baldur's Gate 3, and it solved this one singular problem. And it was a mod called Party Limit Be Gone. And basically what it means is that you can have up to, 8... player characters that are actually out in the field at one time. I do not have to anymore trade out characters from the camp and have them come in. They're always out in the field. In fact, I think that it can go up to 16 if you have helpers or recruits or anything like that. But basically, everybody can be out in the field. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to do that, especially for Baldur's Gate 3, is that the characters all interact with each other. When you arrive at any scenarios, different characters will have agency in them, and you don't know who among them is important to this. I've run across things where, Will ends up being incredibly important to the storyline, but for some reason... I didn't know that, and so it was a good thing he happened to be in my party at the time, but once I started to get 5 or 6 characters, all of them, I was like, okay, but now I really don't know who's important. Sometimes 3 or 4 of these characters are integral to the storyline that is moving forward, and so I don't know who is important, and their interactions with each other is also important.
And the interactions with quests that are not just their quests, their follower quests. I don't know if it's a thing games like this do to encourage you to play through multiple times to see how different people react to things.
Possible.
But that doesn't seem tenable with a game as large as Baldur's Gate 3.
I know that there are people that have run through the game multiple times.
They're insane.
They are insane. I think that it's a very large game. I didn't want to miss something that was important for the characters that were in the field. And I mean, I know why they had a limit of like a 4-person party, like a 4-character party, because one, it was probably for scaling. Difficulty ratings, they based it around a certain number of characters. But even back when we had Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, the parties were 6. It was a 6-person party. And the thing that made logical sense to me back then was if you dismiss a person in the party, they go back to wherever they originally were, and same thing with like Wasteland. And then you'd have to pick them up. The thing that never made sense to me with Baldur's Gate 3 is I have all the characters with me, and they're just hanging out at the camp. If they're just hanging out at the camp and not going back to some place, then why aren't they just out in the field? Why are they just not there? They're all supposed to be interacting with each other. They all have roles to play in the field. They all have, strengths and weaknesses that could become very useful to talk about in the field. And so it feels a lot better having all 6 of your primary characters that they worked real hard on fleshing out as full characters with stories to have them all in the field at the same time.
Do you think it could be a beneficial trade-off if they were to say, yes, all the characters are with you and will pop out for story beats and stuff like that when necessary, or when they have things to comment on it, or it's a quest of theirs, even if they would be at camp, with the caveat that you can only have 4 of your party members be active combatants? If they did something like that, where you could be like, all right, you are like in my reserve. I have these 4 active party members, and then 2 of you are in the back, but you're still traveling with me, so you're still gonna pop out and go, oh hey, actually I had a comment about that.
Right. I think that for me, that just kind of says, well, then get off your lazy butts and get out here because we're fighting a troll. Like, why? Yeah, you're right.
Maybe they're resting. Maybe they're resting. They did a watch. Maybe they did watch at camp.
Here's what would help with that. Is if every single one of the characters had passive camp skills that they lent to the parties. So that you had to figure out, like, okay, from a strategic standpoint, yes, all the characters are actually involved, but we only have, like, 4 that are in active combat, but the other ones have passive skills that actually are beneficial. I wouldn't even mind if they were like, you can have everybody in combat, but we're just going to scale combat to having everybody in the field. Like, that just scale it to having more people in the field. As it stands, granted, it does make the game easier, because instead of a 4-person team,
then you just increase the difficulty then.
Exactly.
If you want to.
You could always increase the difficulty. I will say that when you get to the Underdark, it does help, because you have the bullets that come at you, land sharks. And once I figured out that they were out there, it's like, well, it's actually kind of good that I have as many people in the field as they do.
And you got the hook horrors.
Oh, yeah. And
Which I personally had a fun time with the hook horrors as a warlock, because I went Eldritch Blast with the one that knocks them back.
Yeah.
So they'd be up on a thing, I'd shoot them, they'd get knocked back and fall down a chasm.
Yeah. I definitely upgraded Will's ability to do that so that he had knockback.
I never really used Will, because the playthrough I got for this on was playing as a warlock, and it's like, I don't really need 2 warlocks unless they add in more subclasses for it, because I would love to play a Hexblade.
The thing is, though, Will does, especially early on in the game, have some pretty major storylines that are based around other characters in the game, too. Like with Karlach.
Karlach.
Yeah, with Karlach.
So here's my question.
Sure.
Given that you have a full party of 7 characters...
Right.
Or whatever, if you didn't have 7 characters, what would your party composition be?
What would my party composition be? What was I actually using? I had Shadowheart. I definitely wanted to have Shadowheart in the party. I think, was I using Lae'zel? I think I was using Lae'zel because I wanted a front range, and then, I think I had Gale. I think I had Gale because I wanted a dedicated spellcaster.
Interesting.
Even though Gale is kind of annoying, just because he constantly needs to eat artifacts that I.
It's not even that annoying. I had Lizelle.
Yep.
Asterion.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need a rogue in the party.
Mm.
And then I believe, who did I have? It was not Karlach, because she's kind of squishy.
Yeah.
She's really squishy.
But Karlach hits hard.
She does, but she dies fast. And Lizelle is a much better,
Lazelle's
fighter.
great. That's why I like to keep Lazelle out. But
who was the other one?
Shadowheart or Gale? Right? Because you weren't using Will.
It must have been Gale, because Shadowheart sucks.
What don't you like about Shadowheart?
She's not a very good cleric.
Yeah.
She's useless in a lot of situations. No, she hits like garbage. It barely hits if she does hit. And the spells she has are mostly illusion and trickery based.
The thing that I found was really useful about Shadowheart, though, is if you give her, the poison, the corruption cloud, or whatever the melee attack is that adds poison damage, she's usually pretty reliable about that, but you have to use her as a melee class.
Yeah.
And go in and whack people real hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lazelle does well in the field. And Gale will die very quickly, but you can keep him in range.
He's a wizard, of course.
Yeah. I think what happened was Asterion was the last character I got out of the 6. Which is
really?
a lot of time. Yeah, and when you realize where he is on the map, when I got to that, I was like, oh, I see why most people would have gotten to him first. But I went in the other direction. I didn't go to the west. I went all east. And so he was actually the last character I ended up picking up.
No, he's good because he's a rogue and he can sneak around, and you can get him to dual wield easily. And he's really good with a bow and ranged sneak attack too. So
yeah, he also sucked all my blood out. So
did you let him kill you?
Yes. and I got resurrected. So.
Good job.
And then you confront him on it. I love when and he's like, "Oh, good, you're better now." Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Thanks for that. Yeah. No, but then again, I also, who was the bard that joins you for a little while?
Oh, Volo,
yeah. I let him do the eye surgery.
Yeah, you get a permanent buff if you do that.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I was just like, I gotta see where this is going.
Yeah.
I gotta see where this is going. No, you get a special eye so you can always see invisible creatures. It's pretty damn good.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's pretty damn good.
That's a buff. That's a buff.
Oh, yeah, it's a big buff. It's a good one.
It's not a buff if you're a warlock. It's just like, dude, I could have done this with my normal eye.
Right. But anyway. So, yeah, I guess that would have been my party composition, but I see the benefit of, in a lot of RPGs that I've played, they usually assume a 6-person party. And I guess in 5e, since they're basing it off of 5e, a lot of that is based on a 4-person party for critical ratings. And also, I think one of the reasons was because in Larian's other RPGs, like Divinity, Original Sin 1 and 2, it's also a 4-person party. And so that might be the reason why they were doing it here. I just found it really disappointing when I started playing the game and they had defined these 6 very important characters, and I had already seen all of the voice actors play D&D together and all of that, and I was like, oh, kind of a shame that they can't just all be there every time. And luckily there was a mod to do it. It was the only mod I cared about because I just wanted to fix that so I didn't have to constantly do party rearranging and trade out supplies and stuff between them in the field.
It is a little annoying doing that.
It is, and luckily Party Limit Be Gone fixes that. The only problem, of course, is that it does mess with the difficulty settings. It's going to make it a hell of a lot easier if you want the challenge of the combat. And also, I have found a couple places where if your party is teleported to another location, or if they are moved to another location, some of the party members that are not in the first 4 will like become invisible or uninteractable. And so that there is an issue with it. But for the most part, it works fine. And I'm playing a bard, and I was just happy that there weren't any of those characters that were a bard. So I didn't double.
Well, bards are annoying, so.
Mine sure is.
One of the other things, if you wanted to, with like looking at mods, I know you said the only mod you wanted, but I know there are a ton of people who have made mods for subclasses and other class variations that are actually 5e based, or actual ones that 5e has in it that you could do. So if you wanted to, say, play a bard that is not currently in the game, but you know is a bard that they offer in 5e, you could do that.
That's good. Luckily, like, I'm playing Max, and Max was always a College of Lore bard, so that is one of the few options that they do have. But I did find that it would be really cool to see so many other of the subclass or archetype options that they put in. The options that they give you are at least enough of a range so that you can choose something that works for your playstyle. But
Sure.
There were so many interesting ones. Like, I don't think College of Glamour got in there, but a lot of people like that. There's some interesting ones that are there for the different classes that just aren't presented. I think the one that had the most was like the wizard. I think you could have the schools, like all the schools.
Well, yeah, that's not even subclasses, really. That's just which specialization of wizard are you?
Right. And I believe Gale is an evocation wizard, I want to say.
Yeah, well, of course he is. Otherwise, he'd be useless in a combat-heavy game.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not using him for healing or anything like that. That's always good, because you get shape spells, so you don't have to worry about blasting your... when he starts getting Fireball, you don't have to worry about blasting the rest of the party. No, there's just so many interesting subclasses, and I might have to look at that just to see what other ones you can spec into.
Well, good news. If you're on Nexus, you can filter it by what type of mod, and that can be gameplay.
That can be gameplay.
Or you can just look up subclasses.
I could look up subclasses or archetypes.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're considered archetypes.
Either or, both.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I might try that, but I wanted to make my confession here that I did put a mod into the game, and yes, it means that all the party members are out, but I think that it makes just narrative sense that all the characters in a very narrative-heavy, character-focused game are in combat at the same time, or are out in the field, and that they would make all of their checks. That was the other thing, too, is like, if they're sitting at camp, wouldn't they also still make survival checks and nature checks and stuff? But no, only if they're in the
camp,
field.
sure, not if they're not on the field, though.
Right, but technically you could set down camp practically anywhere, so they're always with you.
I guess.
Anyway. I'm wondering if anyone had to put some mods into Baldur's Gate 3. If there were any mods that you would recommend, let me know in the comments down below. Who knows, maybe I'll try another one. I'm trying to limit mods on a lot of these games to just like one, for things that I might find to be a hassle. I don't like to mod games, I like to play them the way that they are meant to be played until I find something where I'm like, okay, now I just am annoyed. I want to fix this problem.
You gotta heavily mod games so that you can experience games in different ways. That's why I have 170 Skyrim mods.
Sure. Hey, that works.
The base game is fine, but only the first couple times you play it.
Well, that's it. I want to start by playing it.
Sure.
Subsequent playthroughs, that's another thing. But
sure. I've currently modded No Man's Sky. Like Planet Generation, I have one for Planet Generation. It makes them less bland.
No Man's Sky definitely could use that. Let us know in the comments down below, what kind of mods do you like? Have you used any for Baldur's Gate 3?